Hey guys, Roger with Grower Solution. They talked me into it. I'm kind of doing a question and answer, so we're going to do a bunch of question and answers here. And Tim is behind the camera. He's going to ask me questions, and I'm going to do the best I can to answer them. Okay? Remember one thing though, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
How did you develop your passion for gardening and greenhouse cultivation?
Develop, I guess it goes back to I gardened when I was a very, very young boy with my uncle and my grandmother. We just had they had a big garden, and my grandmother was, and my uncle the same way. They were this type of person that could just throw seeds on the ground and they germinate, and I've just always had that knack and have just literally most of my stuff I learned from book working or looking at books and reading books back in the day. And of course now the internet makes it a lot easier, and then just trial and error. I just keep plugging away and just learning it. I just enjoy it. It gives me, I know it sounds corny, but it gives me a little bit of peace. What
inspired you to start Grower Solution?
What inspired me to start Grower Solution? I just got tired of working for somebody else is really what it boiled to, and I thought, I can make a living at doing something that I really love doing. And I never even realized it was going to grow and develop to the level that it is. We have many employees. We have great staff. We build some really nice greenhouses, sell all kinds of products. But I didn't plan it that way. I just didn't want to work for somebody else. I wanted to work for myself, and just like a lot of people do. And that was the dream. So,
can you share some key benefits of owning a greenhouse for both professional and home gardeners?
Well, we'll start with the home gardener first. The biggest thing with a home gardener is you're able to have about 6 weeks more of growing time on the front of the season, and about 6 weeks growing time on the back season. And actually, if you put a little heat on it, you might even be able to get tomatoes by Christmas, which is kind of cool. But it's in the middle of summer and it's hot. There's no benefits to it other than if you want to put a shade over top of it. But when you can extend that season on both ends, it makes a big difference. As far as from a professional standpoint, as far as professional greenhouse, you can make a very good income growing plants, growing hanging baskets, growing produce. Think about all the different things that can be grown in a greenhouse. Again, extending your seasons. You have to think about it some, what you want to do. But it's a business. It's just a legitimate business that you can make a fair profit at. Are you going to get rich? Well, I can't guarantee you that, but you're going to make a good profit. And I know many, many people, it's what they do full time, and they love it dearly. So,
what are some important factors to consider when selecting the right greenhouse for specific gardening needs?
Important factors selecting a greenhouse. Are you going to heat it? Are you not going to heat it? Do you need double plastic? Do you need ventilation? In other words, do you need fans in it, or do you just need roll-up sides? Do you need sidewalls on the side? The trend now is, when I first started, the trend was just to do a Quonset, and so you lost a little space because you had shorter crops on the sides. But now everybody wants a high sidewall where it's 6, 7, 7.5, 8 foot on the sidewall, so it's straight up, so you can grow crop all the way from one wall to the other wall and have all that height right there. those are probably some of the big ones. I'm sure I'm forgetting some other ones, but those just come top of mind to me.
How has the demand for greenhouses evolved over the years, and what trends do you see in the future?
Wow. Demand for greenhouses and evolving. So when we first started, now remember, this coming year, we're coming up on, I think it's 20 years in the business. But when we first started, it was a big deal for us to get a order for 10 Quonset houses, just round top houses, for a nurseryman that was just having to overwinter his crop. Then I noticed the big, and I'm going to call it the growing the produce and extending the seasons, growing tomatoes. That's probably the biggest one, tomatoes, in the houses, and turns into a business that just the average person can have. And that has just held on. And the local food, everybody likes to buy local food. Not everybody wants to buy it from Big Box USA that's been pumped in from out of the country even. They want to buy it from their local region, and it's very important that you support those people, because you need to support the region that you live in, because you're supporting that economy also. I mean, we try and do that very much locally. Support the people that are locally as much as we can. Yes, I know we're in internet business. Yes, that's kind of double standards, but we try and support local businesses for sure. And that has kind of hung on. And then, of course, the big medical business has come back also. And, you know, we still have the nursery business, but it's interesting. The nurserymen kind of were there, and then you've got the produce guys, and then you've got the medical guys with medical marijuana, and then now it's just such a big deal for the hobbyist to grow in their backyard, and they want to grow their produce instead of going to Big Box USA and buying their produce. They want to do it, and it's become their hobby.
What are some of the most common challenges that gardeners face when setting up and maintaining a greenhouse?
So I guess probably the biggest problem is temperature. You know, in the early spring or in the fall, when the temperatures are more seasonable and mild, you don't have to deal with it much. But when it's summer, it's scalding dog hot, and you can never get it. If it's 95 degrees outside, you're never going to get it cooler than 95 degrees. You might get a few more degrees, but it's just still going to be hot. Same way in the winter. If you're not heating that house, you have to heat it to keep it from freezing so that you can grow crops, or grow crops that can take a frost or take some freeze, and there are some out there. Also, insects, disease. It's probably magnified a little more in a greenhouse because you're in a microclimate, and that seems to make it just magnifies it. So you have to be on top of and that's a completely different subject, but you have to be on your A game with this to make sure that you're staying where aphids might not be a big deal out in the garden, but when you're in a controlled environment in a greenhouse, aphids will multiply 10 times faster. That's probably the biggest thing. And not aphids, but bugs in general and disease in general.
How do you ensure that Grower Solutions stays at the forefront of providing high-quality, sustainable greenhouse solutions?
We're always trying to improve on our greenhouses. The guys over in fabrication are always trying to improve the design. You know, we've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this most of my life. We've got a lot of people that are knowledgeable here. Are there better ways? It seems like farmers always want to try and improve what they're doing, and a lot of times, unfortunately, it's already about as improved as it can be. But I can't even think of anything right this second on that. This is not a good one. That's a hard one. Okay. So,
can you share any success stories of customers who've achieved remarkable results using the Grower Solution greenhouses?
Wow, yeah. I've got a lot of people that I can think of just locally in our community here in Middle Tennessee that maybe they bought their first greenhouse. I can think of one guy right now, two guys right off the top of me, bought their first greenhouse from us, have bought multiple greenhouses and ranges from us since then. Started out just one guy started out raising hanging baskets and bedding plants. And now he's retired from his main job, and he and his family do this full time. It's a very, very successful business. The other gentleman I was thinking of, he's primarily into produce. He's done some hanging baskets, but he does produce. He does a huge amount of tomatoes. He even does green beans in high tunnels, which there is a big demand for green beans that are pole beans in this area. Yes, they're pretty costly to do. He's even done sweet corn in tunnels just to be able. Remember, we talked about earlier how to extend the growing season on each end. 6 weeks on each end, and really on the back end, if you're heating, you can get probably 8 to 10 weeks on the back of it.
What advice would you like to give to aspiring gardeners?
Gosh, just learn. I have learned literally all my information not only from books, but I've listened to people that are, 40 years my senior, 50 years my senior when I was younger. They have an awful lot of knowledge. In fact, a lot of older people have knowledge of ways to do things that are not even used now that work just as good as the fancy ways. So I don't understand why some people do things like they do, because they've made it a lot harder than it is. Gardening is just as simple as it can be. You take some seeds, you put it in the ground, you keep it wet, and it germinates. And if you've given it water, light, and some fertilizer, you're going to have you're going to benefit from it, whether it's flowers or fruit or vegetables. So let's go with one more. What's your favorite thing to grow? And then we'll stop today. Is that all right?
Yep.
I'll let you read that one.
All right. What's your favorite thing to grow?
That's an easy one. By just deep down, I am a propagator. It fascinates me. It's not a particular thing, but it fascinates me. You can take a cutting that looks nothing more than looks like an ink pen, and if you handle it properly, put it under mist, you can get roots to grow on it. And that's how you get a new baby plant. And it's a miracle. And I've always been fascinated. I'm always challenged by it. I've done a little bit of tissue culture. I won't even get into tissue culture. Look it up, Google it. It's very fascinating. It's just taking a cell and turning it into a plant. Now they do it with other things, but I'm talking about cell to plant. But I've always been told by people that I can put roots on a pencil. I don't know if it's true or not, but I am just always fascinated by it.